Hello everyone, the channel, Animeshka, is with you. Would you like and subscribe and we begin. Anime, Fantasy, Zero no Tsukaima. Season 1. The first series begins with an acquaintance with the main character Louise. She is a noblewoman and a sorceress. At the academy, everyone thinks the girl is talentless because all her spells either fail or lead to something bad. The teacher invites students to demonstrate their abilities and chooses Louise as a test subject. The class is not happy about this, and it turns out for good reason, because the girl makes a mess in the audience with just one wave of her wand. Among all the students there are two girls who will often appear in the series. It's Tabitha or Charlotte and Kerchi. Both constantly go together and mock Louise all the time. This time, the reason for the ridicule is summoning a familiar, which serves as their eternal companion, protector and partner, and is usually some sort of magical creature. Here comes the long-awaited moment of the ceremony of summoning a familiar. Guiche de Gramont summons a huge mole, Kerchi summons a fiery salamander, and Louise summons a commoner Saito. This guy turns out to be from a parallel world, that is, from ours. In order for him to become her familiar, Louise calls a spell and kisses him. From this, an unusual rune appears on the guy's hand, and he passes out, and wakes up already in Louise's room. Louise immediately gives Saito the first task, to wash her underwear, but he refuses. Then she uses a spell to silence him, and complete the task. The effect is reversed, they begin to speak the same language and understand each other. When Louise told him that she had summoned him, and now he was her familiar, Saito decided to run away. Along the way, Saito meets Guiche with Katia, Kerchi with a guy, and the guys help Louise get Saito back. To prevent Saito from escaping anymore, Louise puts him on a chain and orders him to wash his underwear again, and his sleeping place is placed on the rug next to the bed. Saito has to do whatever she orders, otherwise he won't get food. The next day in the dining room, Saito deserves food, but he has to eat from the floor like an animal. Then he and Louise go for a walk outside. He picks up a fallen piece of cake and meets the maid Siesta. She says that he is called a commoner because he has no magic. Saito remembers the night that Guiche prevented him from escaping and decides to take revenge on him, and makes everyone know that Guiche is communicating with two girls at once. The girls are offended, and from one of them, he even gets in the face. Guiche gets angry and challenges Saito to a duel to show his magical abilities by summoning Bronze Guiche. Saito gets slapped in the face, and Louise tries to stop the fight. Guiche offers the guy to take a sword and arrange a real fight. But as soon as our guy picks up a cold weapon, a rune is activated on his hand, which gives him the superpower to handle weapons. Saito grabs a few punches to make Guiche give up. No one understands how a commoner could defeat a wizard. After the fight, Saito loses strength and wakes up 3 days later. Siesta brings him to eat and tells him that Louise has been taking care of him all this time. At one of the classes, Kerchi calls Louise Louise, that is, null. And Saito finally understands why her mistress is called that. Namely, because she has no abilities, no successful spells, and no breasts. The girl is angry, offended, deprives Saito of food, and is kicked out into the corridor. There he is met by Siesta and invited to the kitchen to finish the leftovers. But he is very happy about this. After dinner, Kerchi's salamander catches him in the corridor and brings him to her room. Kerchi confesses her love to Saito and kisses him. Suddenly, Louise intervenes in their caresses and takes the familiar back to her room. The next day, the couple rides a horse into town to buy Saito a cold weapon. The choice falls on the cheapest sword, because Louise has only 100 gold coins, because she spent all her savings on expensive medicines to cure Saito after the fight with Gish. But Kerchi decides to stand out and attract the attention of the main character. She buys an expensive sword and hands it to the guy. The girls ask to choose one sword, but Saito wants to take both for himself. The girls hit him, and Saito eventually chooses a cheap sword that can talk. In the next series, the director turns to his subordinate Longueville and informs her that a criminal named Fouquet has appeared in their world. She is hunting for the Staff of Destruction, which is hidden in the academy. The next day, Saito learns from his chef friends that Siesta has gone to work a housekeeper for the nobleman Count Maud. Saito tells Louise about it. The talking sword claims that Siesta will not only be a housekeeper, but also a nobleman's mistress. The main character, realizing that a friend is in trouble, decides to go straight to this nobleman. He meets with him and asks him to let Siesta go. Count Maud agrees to let him go if Saito finds the lost book, which is protected by the Serge family. It turns out that this book is kept by Kirchi, but she agrees to give it only if they are together. Saito is not satisfied with this. He takes a golden sword and runs to fight with a nobleman. Louise saves him from a duel. Later, Count Maud chastises Saito, Louise, Kirchi and Tabitha, but Kirchi decides to stand up for Saito and gives the nobleman the book. Turns out it's just a porn magazine. Louise and Saito are preparing for a demonstration performance of a tame familiar. Saito offers to show how he knows how to wash Louise's panties, but she is against it. Princess Henrietta de Tristain arrives. It turns out that she and Louise are best friends, but Louise still treats her like a queen and even bows. During the presentation of the familiar, the same criminal Fouquet decides to rob the treasury and take the Staff of Destruction, but she fails to open the door because a strong spell is cast on her. Then a stone monster golem appears and tries to break through the wall, but to no avail. Our main characters stumble upon the monster with Fouquet. The golem grabs Saito, and Louise, in order to save him, says a spell and she to break the barrier of the castle created by the great magicians. The thief takes the prey and flees. The director is looking for people who want to figure out why Fouquet stole the staff. Only the students show interest, namely the main active magicians, Tabitha, Kirchi and our Louise with the familiar, and Longueville together with them as a guide. They go to Fouquet's temporary shelter. When Charlotte finds the casket, a stone monster golem appears. The girls fly away, and Saito remains to fight with him, but breaks golden sword. Louise comes to his aid with the Staff of Destruction, but it turns out to be a grenade launcher from Saito World and, accordingly, only he can use it. Saito kills the monster and Longueville appears. The heroes realize that it was she who stole the Staff of Destruction. Upon his return, the director promises all three a royal reward. And in the evening at the ball, Louise dances with her the familiar Saito. Henrietta thanks Louise and Saito for completing such a difficult task. She holds out her hand to Saito for a kiss, but he kisses the princess on the lips. Henrietta tilts her head, and Louise can't contain her anger and asks to apologize. But the princess even seemed to like it. Henrietta asks Louise and Saito to live in the city, assuming the guise of an ordinary person, in order to conduct a secret investigation and find out whether the nobles oppress ordinary people. They agree and go to the city. Louise wants to buy a horse and rent a nice room, but there is not enough money. So she goes to the casino hoping to earn more, but loses all the money. Suddenly a man comes up to them and offers them a room, but they will have to work. Louise gets a job as a waitress, and Saito goes to the kitchen and there meets Jessica, the daughter of the owner of the cafe. The next day, at one point, Louise notices Saito looking at his colleague's chest, gets angry and throws a bottle at him. When Saito wakes up, Jessica is next to him. She realizes that Saito and Louise are not related, and asks who they really are, and promises, if Saito tells, to teach him a lot. Suddenly Louise bursts in, asks what's going on and angrily hits Saito in the balls. One day Mr. Turin comes into the establishment, but none of the girls wants to serve him. Then Louise approaches, and the nobleman offends her, for which he gets a slap in the face from Louise. And after that, she also uses magic on him. As an apology, the nobleman leaves her a lot of tips, and Louise wins the tip contest. At the end of the series, we are shown that someone frees the thief Fouquet. Louise and Saito return to school, but everyone leaves for the holidays. Louise, as always, gives Saito the task of washing the laundry. Along the way, he meets Guiche and Montmorency, or Monona, as Saito calls her, swearing. Later, he finds a large iron basin. In the evening, Saito decides to swim in this basin, and the maid Siesta walks by. When she sees Saito, she drops the tray, breaks the dishes, and douses her dress. Saito reveals that he is taking a bath, and Siesta decides to keep him company. Just at this time, the clothes will have time to dry. At this time, Guiche and Montmorency are also sitting and chatting. Monmona pours a love potion into Guiche's glass, but Louise drinks it and falls even more in love with Saito, and cannot leave him alone. Montmorency tells Saito that Louise accidentally drank a love potion, and that him shouldn't worry, because the effect of the potion will end someday, maybe in a month or a year. Siesta sees Louise in love with Saito. The guy is uncomfortable, so he later catches up with her and tells her that Louise just drank a love potion, and Siesta tells her that the preparation of the potion is illegal. When Saito returned, Louise was already waiting for him in bed. He promises to bring her back to normal and, under threat of a fine, forces Monmona to create an antidote. To do this, they go to the Spirit of Water. Monmona calls the Lady of Water and asks to share a piece of her flesh, but she refuses. Then Saito promises to do everything possible for her, and the lady asks to defeat those who attacked her. In the evening, they meet Tabitha and Kerchi, who are on a mission to free the city from flooding. Our heroes learn that the lake is overflowing due to the theft of the lady's treasure, namely Anvari's ring. Saito promises to return the ring, and the lady believes him. Louise returns to normal, and Princess Henrietta suddenly appears. The princess says that she decided to marry the King of Germany to protect her little town of Tristain. She asks Louise to return the letter written to the Prince of Wales from the Kingdom of Albion, otherwise the marriage will not work. Guiche overheard everything and wanted to go with them. In the morning they gather, and Ward, the captain of the Griffin Squadron, arrives as an accompanying person and addresses Louise as a bride. They come to the port city, and decide to spend the night. Louise tells a frustrated Saito that her parents made the decision to get her married. After dinner, Louise goes to the room with Ward, and they remember their childhood. Ward offers to get married after completing the mission and promises to always protect her, but Louise remembers Saito, and Ward goes to his room. In the morning, Saito fights with Ward to find out who is stronger. Ward throws Saito into a pile of barrels, and Saito loses. After that, Saito is very sad that he could not defeat Ward, and Louise informs him that she is marrying Ward. Saito is attacked by a golem under Fuchs' command. Kerchi and Charlotte come to his aid. It turns out that the golem appeared specifically to distract Saito, and Louise could fly away together with Ward. Louise and Ward arrive at the prince, and Louise gives a secret message to the prince. In the morning, Ward says that he wants the prince to marry them. Louise is against it, and then Ward puts a spell on her. The next day, they are already standing in the church. It turns out that Ward is actually Jean-Jacques. Saito suddenly bursts in and shouts, "Louise!" In this way, he removes the curse from her. Ward kills the prince. It turns out he is in league with Fouquet, steals the princess's letter, and tries to kill Louise and the familiar, but the girls Kerchi and Charlotte save them. Louise and Saito are kissing. Our heroes are returning to the academy. Louise instructs Saito to do the laundry again. Saito meets Siesta, and she tells him that her grandfather was able to fly to Sato's world on a dragon. After learning this, Saito asks to go with Siesta to her house. Hiru, Charlotte, and Goiche overhear the conversation, and also go in search of the dragon. In the dungeon, the academy teacher and Louise catch up with them, and then they go together and find the plane. The teacher informs that Saito can return to his universe, but for this you need to fly into the portal during the eclipse. And again it turns out that only Saito can control the plane. Goiche arrives on horseback and informs Louise about the coup in Albion, that the Recontrista has seized power and declared war on Tristain. Saito later informs Louise that he plans to fly in 3 days on a full moon. The next day, the director informs that the academy is being closed indefinitely due to the war. Louise writes a letter to Saito that he is fired and goes to war. At this time, the teacher made several barrels of fuel so that the plane could take off. And Saito flies to help Louise, and the girls Kirchi and Charlotte follow him. At this time, a warship had already arrived in the village, and the war began. Saito shoots the dragons from the plane, but suddenly Ward appears on his wind dragon. Goiche and Kirchi defeat the stone monster Fuke. Finally, it's time for Louise to wake up. She gains the power of the void and defeats Ward. The eclipse is past. Goiche reports that Fuke has escaped. Are you also wondering what happened next with Saito and Louise? So it's time to watch Season 2. If you like this video, and you want to see the sequel, then write about it in the comments.